Okay. So, birth is the first ceremony. Birth allows for the stewarding of every ceremony after it. And when we create birth as ceremony, we are setting the child up for living a ceremonious life, for living a connected life, for living a life that intermingles with yin and yang, with duality, with ometeo, that seamlessly allows for the feminine and masculine principle within to flow, to be fluid, that allows us to be fluid with one another as human beings on this earth, that allows for the respect of natural comings and goings, okay? So, birthing ceremony is really important in my worldview, and it is necessary for us to rekindle birth as ceremony, as a place where the mother is respected, where the newborn is respected, where the boundaries and needs that create the spiritual safety are respected. Okay, so I was a human raised in ceremony, and I wasn't given a birth ceremony. I had a very fear based and traumatic entrance into this world, and I believe this is part of why I've come to this work. It's also really interesting for me that my mother, who birthed me in that way, in a colonized way, was a young Chicanita who chose the Red Road, who started going to Lakota Sundance when she was 18, 19, who renounced Catholicism around that age and chose to re-indigenize. And in indigenous circles now, it is a post-colonial indigeneity that personally, as a Chicana, as a mixed blood, I have seen come through, in that we are all so deeply affected by the trauma of colonialism, by having our songs and our languages and our children stripped away from us. And I cannot speak to personally, but you heard Sister's speech speak to the traumas of a post-slavery colonialism for those of the African diaspora, and also the trauma of the European settlers having promulgated this trauma onto the indigenous and African, and also that mixed trauma of all of the rape involved in there, why we are all mixed European and indigenous and African descent, right? So this is a lot of trauma, right? That we're all trying to process here now, that we are doing this deep good work here and now, to hold space for, to heal through together with all of our ancestors. So thank you once again for choosing to be here. This is important work, and I honor each and every one of you for stepping up to do this work together here now. So, honoring our birthing ceremonies and honoring life as ceremony is what is helping to heal this. And as you all have noticed or witnessed by now, that when we do our collective meetings and in some of these, what I am doing is holding space for this healing in a way that honors the unseen. And it is in part that I'm trying to also bring back, that we are not walking here alone. We have all of our ancestors with us. We have all of our unseen helpers, our cosmic families, our souls, councils, our spiritual guides, our elements, our animal allies, etc. All of these energies we enter with, all of these ancestral understandings we enter with. and you all have your own too, that as you continue on this spiritual path, you are moving into the connection with, the communication with, the relationship with these unseen helpers and guides and relationships. Okay, this is big work, big work, and it begins with birth, right? As is my teaching of growing up, ceremony starts when it starts and ends when it ends. There's no rushing ceremony. When we go into ceremony, we must expect anything. This is the time to trust the great mystery and go with the flow. So these are some guidelines I've written up. By no means are they be all end all. Honestly, what I know of ceremony, and as having been raised in ceremony by syncretized mestizaje of indigenous colonial everything, things shift, things change. Some things are traditional, some things are new. But more than anything, connecting with spirit is the most important thing, and allowing spirit to move the space is the most important thing, and you listening to that. Okay, so before the birthing ceremony, you want to establish the rules for the container. So we're calling the ceremony the container. And this goes along with what we will talk about in the birthing rules, etc. later. So the container, you set the rules. No one enters without consent, no alcohol, this person's in charge of this, etc. You create, though, your own protocols for what will happen in the container of the ceremony. So once you feel it is time, set the container. This is the beginning of the ceremony. Sometimes you'll feel the veil thin and the ceremony start before you set the container, depending on how connected you are to your guides and your process and your teachers and your baby. The container will begin to set itself. My partner was facilitating a men's healing circle when I went into labor, and I had this strong need to scrub the bathroom. Like, I cleared off a specific corner of the bathroom that needed it for a while, and I spent like 2 hours like on my hands and knees scrubbing. My mom and some other people have said like that's an impulse right before you go into labor, is like serious intense nesting, and then because movement, you'll see in the induction sheet, movement is a really strong way to induce labor. So that intense working got me going, and the container was already set. And in that cleaning frenzy, I also set an altar with a birthing statue in it, and I ended up having my son in the bathroom. And I wasn't planning on that. That's just where the container was set. So spirit will start setting your container as well. Okay. So you want to set the altar. I said I did that even before I thought. Maybe that was even the impetus for the birth. As soon as the altar was set, contractions began. Okay. Many of you might have your own traditions with altar setting. An altar is the portal. An altar is the place spirit comes and knows you're there. Anything can be on your altar. I mentioned in the roles, the fire keeper. An altar is where you have your candle, where you put your smoke medicine, where you put your water offering, okay, where you have your offerings to the ancestors and your guides. You can have whatever you want on your altar. There would be a different birthing altar than your regular altar, or you add certain birthing elements to your altar. I have a birthing deity that is from the indigenous people of Ecuador. That was a gift to me that I put on my altar. Ishtar, you can put on your altar. Tlazolteotl is the Mexica manifestation of that birthing energy. There's so many different deities or representations of these unseen helpers, of these God continuum helpers, these non-human unseen helpers. Okay, so whatever that looks like to you and your tradition, maybe you have signs, or maybe there's a bird that you've been seeing over and over again through your pregnancy. Whatever your altar needs to contain, set it. Okay. So then when you set your altar, that includes starting the fire, and this is conjunct with opening prayers. So starting your fire in your smoke medicine, your fireplace, your kitchen, wherever that is, you want to speak what you're calling in. In that, you can set your parameters. You honor your personal, cultural, ancestral medicine. Okay, so all of these are kind of in the same place of setting the altar. Once you set the altar, set the space, then that is the container your ceremony exists in. So it's very important you choose, and I don't even want to say choose. When I pray, when I call in intentions, it's a direct channeling. And that's part of what you want to be practicing with your voice as you are moving through this, that we practice our voice. So, for example, say, Great Spirit, God, Creator, Tonkashila, Virgencita, Yemaya, all that is good, all that is sacred, all of the helpers of the birthing portal, all of my midwife ancestors, all of the birth keepers of antiquity, of present day, and of the future, be here with me now. I call upon all of my honorable ancestors, the mothers before, the grandmothers before, to hold circle with me, to hold space with me, that I may be strong, that our birther may be present in her body as she brings forth light from the spirit realm to earth. Great Spirit, be here with us now. I call upon the birth keepers of my lineage. Ometeo. It will keep coming through like this. And this is when you want to ask yourself, who is going to steward my ceremony? Who am I calling to help the spirit unseen realm in this material realm, in the flow of this great transition of my life? Who will be here with me in the unseen and the seen? Okay, calling in the space and setting the container has so much to do with who you choose to preside and how they preside. Okay, you can write your intentions if you don't want it to be you, or as soon as it is time, when you start contracting, you're still there enough where you set the space. Okay, it is so important to do that. When you speak, you say, may I do this in complete reverence of my own vessel and the inner knowing of myself and my child. May I birth this baby through my vagina if it is the will of the great, and may any surgical person who may come in contact with my womb and my body be loving and graceful and compassionate and so guided by you, Great Spirit. You call in exactly what you want to be in your space, then, now, forever. Okay? You preside over your ceremonial container. Okay? Ooh, it's a lot. It's intense. And that's why birth ceremony is ceremony. Okay? And this is from this ceremony that we do this work. It is not only in the material realm. Ceremony is its own life. Ceremony holds its own life. Okay. So you set the parameters and the protections. Like, I call upon Saint Michael the Archangel. I call upon my own protective self. I call upon all mother beings. I call upon Baba Yaga. Whoever your people are, call them to you. Call upon my grandma, Celia, here now. I had a birth where when it was time, we set the ceremonial space, we opened to the directions, and when we called the ancestors in, the door like swung open, and that was super beautiful. And we knew they were there. When we called the grandmothers, the door was like, and they're like, we're here, with wind. It was beautiful. All right. So setting the space is super important, and whoever I would choose to do that whenever you feel called to. It's going to be a different thing when some of the people who are supposed to be there aren't there yet, but you set the container when you feel you need to set the container. And part of the job of the steward is to tell whoever comes the rules of the container and smudge them off and cleanse them off, and do whatever you need to do, that whoever else comes is part of the container. Okay. So then once the birth, that honestly, every birth is different, right? And those of you who are birth workers, you know, like some are long, some are short, some are happy, some are traumatic, some are crazy. Your stuff's gonna come up. There'll be times when you're crying. There'll be times when you're like yelling, of course, because it's painful. There'll be different musics that come on. But once the container is set and you know it is sacred, the steward will then be able to move it as it comes. It has been my experience that circles create the most cohesive container for a birthing environment. It literally holds the energy. So in the spaces where I have been blessed to be the steward of the ceremony, the circle is everything. So once again, I was raised in Dance Azteca, and we call the dance circle mitotilistli. And mitotoa means like the jumping or the dancing, but it refers to the sacred energy circle created of people in circle holding an energy. A circle is the perfect container. So when I've been in birth ceremony that have like been powerful, the greatest transitions have happened when the circle comes to close. And there's only been 2 times where that's been really strong in my birthing stewardship experience. And both times the birthing person was part of the circle. We weren't around her. She was part of the circle. But I do know that elephants stand in a circle around birthers. So the container is either holding the circle around her or with her, but the point is closing the energy. So in one of these births, the mother was there, and I feel like it's really interesting with mothers because mothers don't want to step on their children's agency, or they're overstepping on the agency. In this case, the mom was kind of like stepping back, like, I ain't trying to get you up in there. And there was like 5 of us. And I told the mom to come in the circle. And as soon as she closed that circle, there was this like that began, where we were like literally all on the same vibra. It was freaking cool. Circle medicine. So who do you want in your circle? Is everybody on the same page to get in that circle? Does somebody have the authority to be like, yo, in line, boom, and then you guys are there? Okay. Song medicine is super powerful. Okay, so I told you the story of when my son came. It was when my mom and aunties and midwives and cousin all started singing this song, and baby was like, pooh. The first birth I presided at as an acupuncturist, it wasn't the acupuncture that got them out. It was the song medicine, okay? Ancestral songs are huge. So do some research, or, ask around, do some Googling. Honor and respect the ancestors of the songs that you're using. Give them offerings. Give them thank you. Offer some tobaquito, some tequilita, whatever your offerings are, some elderberries, whatever you have to offer to those ancestors who have gifted you that song medicine. And or let your voice bring the song. It doesn't take how to put this, the song can come through you. Great Spirit, may you birth in love, Great Spirit, help us birth in love, in love. And then just keep singing the same thing. That just came through, right? The chant medicine. A canto is a chant. It's not like some song with all these bridges and changes. Simple works, rhythmic, breath, drum, song. Boom, boom, boom. You're creating a consistent container, okay? And or have a playlist. Okay, choose, like I said, part of what I wanted when I was in labor, I wanted my brother to come sing to me, and he came and sang peyote songs to me. And it was really great. Okay, so dance music, playlist, live ceremony music, it's all important that you have the person allocate the tone. You or the person you choose can allocate the tone. Okay, I would definitely preemptively create some playlists or some artists or talk to whoever your steward is to let that song medicine work. And if you want some silence and to be in your own space, that's really important too. So that said, I want to offer that sometimes your ceremony is yours and yours alone, silently, and that's what you choose. Like, it doesn't have to be all flowery. Like, any ceremony, again, is a ceremony, and ceremony starts when it starts and ends when it ends. You can call in your own helpers at the beginning. You don't need a steward if it's just you and your partner and that's what you want, and you two are in deep ceremony together. Okay, you could simply light a candle and say, Great Spirit, may we bring life together now. Boom, prayer said, intention, go for it. Okay, you have your midwife in the other room and it's just you and your partner, or maybe it's just you. Okay, birthing and talking to your baby and bringing them through, and your breath is your song. All right, again, there's no specific only way to do this. Check out options and see what resonates with you, and then when you're in that space, it's going to take on a life of its own anyway, because that's how ceremony works. Which brings me to the next point, is go with the flow. Okay, you might have the planniest of plans. It's gonna go like this, and then there's like this, but then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I need to go to the hospital, or like some visitor from out of town just shows up at your door and you happen to be in labor and you feel called to let them in, or a myriad of God knows what could happen, because that's the nature of ceremony. Spirit works. Spirit works. So let spirit work and keep open and keep asking, and have your birth team keep open and keep asking, so that the energy of the ceremony moves in ways that are in alignment with the great. This is very nuanced and takes a lot of practice to listen, okay? And so it's necessary for you also to be compassionate with yourself and the people there, and slow down and patient and really listen, and be in a place of power as opposed to a place of fear. Again, all of this stuff is way easier said than done because we're so far removed from our inner knowing. But the more we practice, and with the generations that come, and with every time we give ourselves permission to listen and shift our expectations, is going to play a role in the birth and going with the flow and shifting the expectations. Okay. So go with the flow. Have birth team members that can self-manage their comings and goings, etc., so you can concentrate on staying in your zone. I think that speaks for itself. So this is really good. This next part, that one of my favorite midwives said to my partner in preparation: offer, don't ask. So whatever it is, if you have water for the birthing person, if you have honey for the birthing person, if you have bone broth or tea, Don't be like, hey, would you like some water? Because the birthing person is like in their zone and they can't really necessarily correspond with you. So say, here's water. You want some? They can grab it and drink it or go, no. Okay. That was really important. Make sure you have easily digestible, available, nutrient dense sustenance available. Small amounts are better than large. So one of my gripes with my labor is that one of my midwives was like, you need sustenance, and gave me twice 2 full meals to eat and kind of made me eat them. Like I was like, that's enough. She's like, nope, keep eating. And I threw it up twice because of pain. And it was just too much. Like our body's doing so much. You cannot be trying to digest the whole last meal while you're in labor, in my experience. And if I were right-minded and I were able to, like, I wish I could have cloned myself, let me tell you. But have a cup of bone broth. Have that labor aid available. Have a spoonful of honey, okay? Things that you don't have to chew a lot, things that are already pre-digested, as in bone broth or porridge, if you don't do meat. Nutrient dense, highly available foods. I would recommend warm foods and not cold foods, okay? Because we want to keep that fire burning, the internal fire, the digestive. I don't want to say the digestive fire, but like your body is doing work, and having to digest anything cold is going to slow your work down or take energy from the work your body's already doing to birth the baby to warm it up to digest the food. So warm foods it has to be, okay? Ceremony starts when it starts and ends when it ends. We'll talk more about finishing the ceremony next week in the postpartum module, because ceremony isn't over until you have your baby. If you feel called to transfer to the hospital at any point or leave the hospital, do your best to stay in your zone. So staying in your zone is really important. That's why you don't want to have people in and out of the birth room. That's why you don't want to have people who aren't in alignment with your energy in the birth room. If you have a parent or a sibling or people there who are super fearful, you definitely don't want that in your birthing room. You need to be able to stay present in your personal process without having to manage the energies of anyone around you. Okay, as a birthing person, your responsibility is to go to the spirit realm and bring back your baby. Everything else needs to be delegated. Everything else. If for some reason you feel like you need to leave your home and go to the hospital, or leave the birthing center and go to the hospital, do your best to stay in your zone, okay? That means keep your head covered. That means keep your eyes covered. And I just learned this, or Pankitsani brought this to my attention, and it makes so much sense, because so many of my patients, if they're birthing at home, even if they planned on going to the hospital, but they want to stay at home for as long as possible, which I highly recommend, you literally oftentimes digress when you go into the hospital, because there's bright lights and the energy is so different, and there's people all around you, and you will like go from 4, 5, 6 centimeters dilated back to, right? Because also the like fear factor closing you. So in order to help that, it might not be able to avoid it completely, but like just keep sunglasses on, keep covered, put earphones on or earplugs, like stay in your zone as best as possible. When you walk, somebody support you, help you get there. Try not to talk to people, okay? Just, you need to be in your own zone, because you are in consistent connection with spirit. All right. Okay, once again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for doing this journey with me. I'm really excited for our talk. Please, those of you who are unable to make it, send me questions. Send me anything that you feel called to share. And we'll definitely do some pair sharing. during this upcoming week's connection gathering. I'm so grateful to be here with all of you, and I honor each one of you and your personal journey with this work. Ometeo.